The DELETE Act, also known as Senate Bill 362, allows California consumers to make a single request to delete their personal data from all data brokers registered in the state. The act also prohibits data brokers from selling or sharing the data. The DELETE Act requires the California Privacy Protection Agency, CPPA, to create a public deletion mechanism by January 1st, 2026. The mechanism will allow consumers or authorized agents to submit a single verifiable request. I want to thank everybody for clicking on this video. Today, we're talking about a really interesting topic, data privacy. With me, as always, is my co-host, Pawel. Pawel, how are you doing, bud?
I'm doing great, and I'm super excited to talk about the privacy laws, especially that I am a European Union citizen. I'm from the European Union, and it's very close to my heart to talk about the data privacy.
And same for me, as an American who shares way too much information with everybody. There's a lot of things I'd like to take back. And so that's why I really like that we're talking about data privacy today. Just for you viewers, we're going to be going through and talking about not just data privacy in the state of California. We're also going to be talking about the EU and talking about their style of data privacy and how that's going to influence California's data privacy and hopefully data privacy across the entire United States, because you have rights, and there's a lot that we can do to improve strengthening those rights. Before we discuss, though, I think we do have one disclaimer we want for the entire audiences to know that we are not legal experts, okay? We are here discussing our opinions. We are here to give you a brief overview of the laws that are currently in place and what could be in place soon, but please do not take this as legal advice.
That's right. So I wanted to discuss with you, Colin. I would like it to be more of a discussion this time about the European Union laws, which is the most forthcoming law ever passed about data privacy. I want to briefly talk about the laws in the United States regarding the data privacy. And then I would like to focus on the California specific laws, which is the point of this episode, because I think there are very interesting changes coming to California laws, and I'm looking forward to it. So GDPR introduced 8 key rights that all European Union citizens have. So briefly going through them: the right to be informed. It's the right to be informed about the what data companies are collecting about you. Mm-hmm. Then you have the right to access the data, so you can see what data they're collecting from you, from your behavioral data. Mm-hmm. Then you have another key right under the GDPR, the right to alter. So you can request any data processor, that includes governments, to alter your data if they are inaccurate. Then you have another very important law that Europeans love, is the right to erasure, which is also called the right to be forgotten. So you can ask any company in certain circumstances to erase your data. Then you have another right to data portability, which allows you to get the data from one system, let's say Facebook, mm-hmm. and upload it to another system, which is, say, Google. Then you have the right to object, so under GDPR. So that right allows individuals to stop or prevent the data controller from processing their personal data. And the final key right under GDPR is the right to the rights around automated decision-making and profiling, which is something that I actually learned while I was researching for this episode. I didn't know it actually existed, and it's actually a very interesting law where data subjects, which is us, have the right to not be subject to decision making based solely on automated processing. That includes profiling that have a legal or similarly significant effect on us.
And that's a really interesting one, because there's so many things that are made, so many decisions that are made automatically nowadays, right? Like I think about YouTube, for example, since we're on this platform, right? A lot of people have been, for example, taken off of the platform, or a video is taken off. And, it makes sense because they have so many videos uploaded every day and so much content that they're going to use automation to detect maybe keywords that are offensive or not allowed on the platform, things like that. But, I just think that's really interesting because that's so many decisions are being automated right now.
That's true, and my company is in the business of actually automating, providing you a platform with those automations. So, are we part of the problem? I don't see this as a problem. The problem is how you actually use those algorithms, this flows, this decision-making processes. They definitely help to run your business, especially to do this at scale. Mm-hmm. And to your point, at Google, I don't remember the number, but there's like a lot of hours uploaded to YouTube every second. Yeah. It's impossible to any organization to check all of them. Yeah. You have to do this automatically. So you have to have some algorithms.
So now we've kind of covered the EU and a little bit of some companies in America, but what's kind of the approach that the United States currently takes to data privacy? How much does it overlap with the EU?
So United States as a whole, on the federal level, don't have any data protection laws. Everything is left to individual states to deal with. What do you think about this approach?
Well, I think there's some. I think there's pros and cons. I think generally it's interesting for states to try and create their own data privacy, and if people want to live in the states that have those types of privacies, and they can try different data privacy, laws, and maybe some will be better for other states, or some people want this or that. I think, though, the issue is there should be an umbrella of things that we can all agree on that should apply to all of the states. Mm-hmm. That's sort of the general way that the United States likes to approach things, is like a generalized and then specific to other states.
So you are thinking more about creating a framework that the other states can implement to enforce the same level of data protection. So this is something that the European Union did with the GDPR. So before GDPR, every country was implementing their data privacy laws. So I mentioned Germans being crazy about privacy laws, while neighboring Poland wasn't that keen to regulate privacy laws. But still, it's consistent across the European Union. And because of that, this is something that American companies don't have. Companies in the European Union have to comply, with the framework when they do business internationally, which is easier because you know what to expect from every country. In the United States, on the other hand, you don't have federally regulated data privacy laws, and because of that, you have to be very conscious about where you do business, in which state, because you may end up having like a completely different set of laws in each state. So I don't really think that this is good for business. Mm-hmm. In long run, that is.
Yeah, right. You've got too many laws that you've got to keep track of. You're trying to do business in multiple states. Just probably the cost of keeping everything legal alone is immense, right?
True. Yeah. And I believe that long run, the US eventually will create a similar to GDPR framework for all states to implement.
Mm-hmm.
I
And
believe it's a matter of time.
I think so too. And I think it's good that we have states like California that are kind of leading the front and making sort of like an example of how this can work. I think
Yes.
a lot of the framework that California has right now, and we can talk about that now, is probably going to be applied throughout the whole US one day.
I truly hope so, because as you mentioned, California is leading the way again to privacy laws. We already, we as Californians, we already have several rights that are very similar to what the European Union citizens have, like right to know, that I already mentioned, like right to access the data and understand how the data are being processed, the right to delete, the right to opt out of the sale of the personal information, and the right to non-discrimination. This is actually different to what the European Union has through the GDPR, because under GDPR, every member state has to implement the same laws. But in case of California, companies from other states might not be so keen to implement, to be compliant with the California Consumer Privacy Act, which is about right now. But California law says that companies that do business in California has to comply with this right, with this law, and consumers in California cannot be discriminated against it. So the business cannot alter conditions of the service rendered to you because you are choosing to use your laws. So that's very California specific and the US specific, because you don't have the parent framework that would actually regulate it between the states. And now we are gonna get new law getting into effect in 2026. It's the Right to Delete Act. It was just signed by the governor of California, Gavin Newsom. So it gives even more protection for consumers in the California, like the right to limit the use and disclosure of sensitive personal information, and they actually even added more definition of what's the sensitive personal information is. The right to opt out of profiling, which is something that the European Union has, and now California is going to have from 2026. The right to opt out of targeted advertising, which is self-explanatory. The right to data portability, which is also something that the European Union GDPR has, and the right to deletion. So consumers will have the right to request that a business delete their personal data. The same laws, the same new law imposes new requirements on businesses, such as the transparency requirements. So the businesses will be required to provide consumers with clear and concise information about how they collected and use the collected data. This is something that is implemented under GDPR. Then you have consent requirements. So again, something that came from GDPR, you have to consent, explicitly give the consent for the data broker to process your data. And security requirements, which is also something that GDPR regulates. We didn't talk about this before, but GDPR do regulate that. So businesses are or will be required to implement reasonable security measures to protect personal data from an unauthorized access. and also requirements to disclose any data breaches, which is something also regulated by the GDPR, and we didn't have it in the US at all. What I would like to actually focus on is the two perspectives of this law's implementation, from the consumer perspective and from the business perspective. Mm-hmm. Because these going to be like completely two different perspectives.
Sure. Right.
Yeah.
I can picture from a business's perspective there. I think a lot of brokers are going to be worried about this, right? They are going to have ultimately less control than the consumer does, right? And they want probably as much control as they want. They want to be able to collect as much data as they want and keep it as long as they want, because then they can make better targeted ads, they can increase their revenue, and ultimately they can share more of your data with other businesses and make more profit, right? So they're going
to by share you mean sell.
Sell, exactly.
Yes, sell. And that's the key word in here. So businesses may complain that this reduces their ability to advertise their products. That's one. On the other hand, you have different companies, firms that created their businesses around data processing and data selling. Mm-hmm. I'm going to refrain myself from stating my opinion how ethical that is to sell your private information to other data brokers or companies without you not even knowing who has your data. I think it's a very problematic from the privacy rights standpoint. Mm-hmm. But I don't really think that we're gonna have a huge problem with companies' failure on the market. Like, will it make it so much difficult to advertise a product? I don't think so. It will make it a little bit more difficult to tailor a specific message to a specific audience or a segment. Mm-hmm. But how's that different from hanging a billboard on a street? Mm-hmm. Like, you still have pretty much the same possibility to target your audience that you are looking for. Like, for example, if you are a tech company, you still, even if you would be cut off from any personal information and the segmentation that you are using today, you can still go to Stack Overflow and advertise over there and offer developers your products. Mm-hmm. And you can still target it. So it's not like you completely destroy businesses in here. You still are able to do this the same way. Mm-hmm. It's going to be more difficult for you, maybe, by the way. It's not like you will. It's maybe going to make it difficult for you to tailor to craft a message to a specific, very specific segment. Mm-hmm. And think about this way. I mentioned that we discussed this, that you're being held in the bubble on YouTube. And what about the products that you are being offered? Isn't that the same thing? Like, mm-hmm. It is right now more problematic to discover new products. Mm-hmm. Because you're being bombarded with the products that algorithms or someone decided that you likely gonna buy.
Sure.
I think it's a bigger problem than being able to advertise very specific products for you.
I think that's a great point. Back to the YouTube algorithm, I'm not getting. There could be so many different genres of videos that I'm not seeing right now that I could, potentially be just randomly advertised to, just because I'm a user on the platform. And with less information, you might try to advertise something new to me that I would have never even considered. I think that's a great point. I think another aspect too would also be the security aspect. I think there's sort of a pros and cons of, I think there's people have a perspective on big tech companies and the way they deal with security of their mm-hmm. information versus the public sector. Tell me what you think of this, but I think most people see the private sector as having more advanced technology, but then they also are more likely to hide or conceal like a data breach, right? Because that's going to lose them money if they're not holding, up to a certain standard. Whereas the private sector or the public sector tends to have weaker tech, and I don't know how that applies to data security. But I think they would probably be more likely to share if there's an issue and try to amend that. What do you think of those perspectives?
I'm going to answer through a perspective of what my company is doing. My company is crazy about data security, like truly crazy, to the point when it drives me crazy sometimes.
Interesting. So they're actually more strict than you would feel comfortable
expect. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So our number one value is trust, and we believe that the trust is very important for our business. It's crucial for our mission to succeed if our customers trust us. And customers won't trust us if we're going to have data breaches. Just one is enough to lose confidence and lose the trust of our customers. So once you don't have trust, you don't have business. If people don't trust you, you can't do business. So because of that, my company is super crazy about the data security, and we have a lot of procedures related to data protection, customer data protections. For example, we can't even access customer data. I mean, technically that would be possible, but the processes that we have in place to actually access customer data are so strict that there is no way that anyone in the company would be able to get into customer data without their explicit permission. Then we have very strict procedures when it comes to accessing those systems by different people. Like, we have to put a lot of effort into designing our systems, our applications, so the only user that is allowed to access the data actually can access those data, and no one else. And every piece of software that we release goes through InfoSec, the security compliance audit before it's even released. So now, putting this into the ground of market and the government, from the European perspective, I would actually expect the government to have higher standards for data protection, especially that the government operates on the most personal information, like your social security numbers, like your gender information, and so on. These are very crucial information that you also give to private companies, but government should be the first one to put extra effort into protecting your data. So I would expect the government to have a higher standards than any private entity. On the other hand, in today's world, we are giving away so much data to private entities. So it's crucial for these entities to actually protect your data significantly. So GDPR actually enforces companies to take extra steps to protect those data. It also regulates how you are being informed of data breaches. So as a consumer, you have to be, in the European Union, you have to be informed about the data breaches within 24 hours once the company discovers that there was a data breach. And my company actually implemented this internally. We had, a couple of years ago, we had a security incident. I'm not getting into details of it. It's actually a public information. We disclosed that within 24 hours of when we realized that there was a security incident. It wasn't actually a breach, but there was a security incident. We literally called all of our customers, like the whole customer service called customer by customer, everyone that we actually had a contract with, to inform them about the problem, walk them through the problem, and told them that we are working on the solution, which we introduced like fairly quickly. I think it was like 7 days after which we actually got the solution ready. And I remember the whole company was on standby. Everyone was involved into fixing these problems. And after 7 days or so, I don't really remember, we got a fix. We informed our customers that this is how you can fix the situation. And after we made sure that all customers were secured and they implemented our patch, then the information was made public that there was a security incident. So that's how a company within the European Union would behave, because this is what GDPR tell them to do. And this is what the new laws coming into effect in California will require companies to do as well, to disclose that there is a security incident to the affected parties, so their customers, the users. And I think it's a great thing, because if the data breach included your, I don't know, credit card number, you can act quickly. So you can call your bank and block your card before this data will get sold on the dark web, whatever.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, it's cool that your company, already has such a high standard, right? I would hope that at least influences some other companies, right? There's at least hopefully a level of competition before, obviously we have these laws that are coming into place, but, I'm curious if that level of standard influences other companies, because I know that was a big thing for like Apple. They were really pushing that, like, we're really good at privacy. I've definitely seen actual advertisement spent towards, getting that across.
I remember those billboards on the Union Square in San Francisco, where they implied through the advertising that iPhone equals privacy protection. I was, while I'm not fan of Apple, when I saw this billboard, I actually felt confident that things are changing in the US. That companies in here are starting thinking about data privacy and the right to privacy, consumer right to privacy. And the companies are starting implementing some processes to make that happen, to make your privacy a right. So I'm confident that eventually companies, firms will even by themselves would implement those laws. But having an actual law will help accelerate this process.
Definitely. And ultimately, I think it's great that we're making more and more strides and trying to make it simpler, because one of the things about the US is that we are connected in a million different ways with a million different laws and a million different perspectives amongst these 50 states. And I think it's great that we can start to implement a couple standards that can go across the board, or at the very least, we can start in California and make it a simpler process, because it is right now, I think, a little too difficult to actually protect yourself as a consumer. And so it's great that we're starting to make some changes. And if you guys thought this was valuable, if you are interested in this topic, please go down to the comments below. I've posted my personal Social Security number, because I'm not afraid. Okay, I'm not afraid of my privacy, because I trust YouTube. Okay. Jokes aside, I hope this was an interesting topic to you guys. comment down below your thoughts. We will be active in the comment section, and we will see you next time.